I'm Thomas London, MBA 99 July. Feels forever now. And I also lead McKinsey's healthcare practice in France. And I've accepted with great pleasure to be the first quote unquote president of this club, whatever that means. But I'm very, very happy to have joined the team, and I'll thank them in a minute, to basically launch this initiative. The objective that we have through these club is fairly simple. It's essentially to increase the connections among our INSEAD French alumni community. Getting to know each other, maybe recreate links, and I noticed there are some people I haven't seen in ages on this call. So recreate the links, create new links, share ideas, and potentially collectively amplify our impact in healthcare. And when we say healthcare here, we mean healthcare kind of with a broad sense, right? Life science industries, pharma, device, and others, health tech, and then players in health systems. We all know how important the performance of our health systems is, obviously to well-being, to the health of the population, but actually, as we've seen in this pandemic crisis, to the economies of our countries, and so the idea of to share ideas and see how we can have impact on the performance of our systems is we feel a great objective to have collectively. At this stage, we run a survey among about 100 people to test a little bit what people would have in mind in terms of events that are most helpful and useful and interesting. And at this stage, we've prioritized a few webinars like today, and I'll come back to our program for today, which is the idea is to really exchange views around innovative initiatives, could be startups, corporate projects, public initiatives. But initiatives that contribute to the transformation of our healthcare systems, again, wherever they can come from. The second thing is, and the idea is to actually, have regular such workshop and webinars, around personalities like tonight. Then the ideas, some suggested that we have something of an equivalent to the random dinners that some of you probably attended on campus, but in a digital form and probably more on a kind of one-on-one format. So with the idea to create connections among members of the group around selected topics, just to have it in a way an excuse to engage on the dialogue. And so we will be coming back to you with the exact way this will work. But that was the second idea. Thirdly, we were hoping to gather physically at some point, and hopefully with the improving epidemiology situation, that might actually hopefully be even before the summer break. And the idea would be to do that around an apéro, as we say here, and then probably around the fall to have a first conference that we would run annually. And basically, gather, around selected healthcare leaders to basically share, vision of the future of healthcare and actually debate and discuss around this. So these are the set of activities we suggest to start with. Obviously, the idea is the club, serves the purpose of its members, and so any suggestions and addition would be more than welcome. Yeah, so please feel free. I'll hand over to Thierry in a minute, and he will share with us kind of the rules of the game for this first webinar. But yes, please raise your questions in the chat. No, there is no fee. There is no fee participating in the club. In a way, the only thing is to be a member of the association. is the only requirement. We would probably ask people for a participation aux frais for the aperitif, but that's about it. Yeah, please do share the news with people around you. Don't hesitate to bring interested alumni closer to us. And before I hand over to Thierry and Alexis for our first webinar, I just wanted to thank the small team that has actually really made this happen. So Sandra, Martin Moran, Bassel de Graff, Yun Xu, Thierry Godelle, Claude Perrol as well, and with a particular mention to Mohammed Boulmani, who's really taken the lead and shown a great deal of leadership to bring us where we are today. So that was just for the introductions. Very much looking forward to it, and then I'll hand over to Thierry and Alexis for our first content session.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Good evening, everyone. So this will be our first session of the Transforming Healthcare discussions. So before we move to the discussion itself, a couple of ground rules for the webinar tonight. So please put yourself on mute if not done already during the presentation to avoid background noise. Some people started to put some questions on the chat. Feel free to do so while we have the discussion and while Alexis is presenting Calmedica. And we will have the answer to the question after the presentation, and you will be also able to keep asking questions in the second part of the night. There is an email address if you have some kind of technical issue or you get disconnected. This is contact@inseadalumni.fr, and we will run the webinar in English because some of you are not French speaker, but also the webinar is also going to be recorded, and we want it to be available for any INSEAD alumni and more, and French or non-French speaker. So that's the setup. Now I want to ask Alexis Hernot, who is going to discuss tonight and to present us his healthcare transformation initiative, to introduce himself to our distinguished audience tonight.
Hi everyone, thank you very much Thierry for the introduction. I am Alexis Hernot, an MBA 04 July, and I am one of the founders of Calmedica. Actually, we are two founders of Calmedica. Corinne, I will talk about her, and myself.
Okay. And so if you give us a little bit more information about your background, educational, professional, and also what eventually led you to launch Calmedica, Alexis.
All right. Can you show the next slide?
Yeah.
Thanks. So first of all, I'm going to talk about Calmedica, of which I'm one of the founders. To set that into perspective, we currently, if we follow 1 million patients per month, aged between 18 and 96, in different situations, but they are monitored for their diseases, and we do that for a number of stakeholders currently in France and starting abroad. So what led, I'm going to show you a slide, the next one, Thierry. The pictures are a bit embarrassing, but they are personal pictures that I wanted to show. I was raised on a farm. So, you know, a farm in the 80s in North Brittany doesn't look very glamour, you know. It's you see the tractor, it's an old one. And this is the settings in which I was raised. I had an old car to have fun in the fields. But what was very interesting, I was since the beginning very interested by business. So when I said I launched my first business at the age of 10, I was trading rabbits on the markets to get some pocket money, because obviously I didn't get much pocket money, and I wanted to be a farmer. Actually, I thought it was the best job you could do on earth, because you are free. You can decide for yourself. You can take your risks. And but my parents, in fact, it was my uncle farms, but I was spending all my time over there. And my parents asked me to pursue my studies before doing anything, taking any decision. And so I went to École Polytechnique. I was lucky enough to join that engineering school. And but then when I went out of the school, I did not choose the path to be an entrepreneur. It was considered completely foolish. People would tell you, well, you need to go in a large company, in a CAC 40, the equivalent of, I would say, Standard & Poor or something like that in the US. But in CAC 40 company, and to manage a factory and then a division and so on. I started to work in healthcare in Sanofi Aventis, called Ron Poulenc Rorer at the time, and I loved it, but I thought and I felt it was not what I wanted to do. What I thought I wanted to do, what I felt I wanted to work in healthcare and technology. So what I did a specialization, and then I just launched a first business, one-person business, which was a software for the Sanofi Aventis R&D that they would use to assess the absorption of drugs in the body. But I didn't create a company because it was not well considered at the time. So I joined a consulting company, and that has disappeared since then. And I worked a lot on operation effectiveness. And I will come back to that, because this is one of the foundations of Calmedica. When I joined INSEAD MBA, I was still focused on that idea to work in technology and healthcare. And that is what I wanted to do. But when I went out of the MBA in 2004, there was nothing compelling to work in those both areas. There were large companies working in technology, for example, Agfa or IBM, GE, but nothing very, I would say, innovative or kind of startups you see now. So I decided to join technology companies instead. And when I met my co-founder, and I will talk about her, we founded Calmedica in 2013.
Yeah. So, Alexis, can you tell us a little bit more about the start of Calmedica, the initial idea, what prompted you to set up that business?
All right. Okay. Can you show the? Okay. So the situation was the following. I had never worked in healthcare, except when I started the in Sanofi Aventis, and when I founded, or I designed that software for the R&D department, but I didn't know anything about healthcare. I worked in technology company, in payment, in air transportation, and I also worked in consulting as a consultant, but I was mainly focused on industrial companies. So how could I join healthcare knowing nothing except technology? Well, can you show the next slide, Thierry?
Yeah.
So I met, or I looked for an appropriate co-founder. So the co-founder is Corinne Segalen. She was this former CEO of Novo Nordisk in France, and the president of IMS, now called IQVIA. And we met in a very particular setting. As you can see on the picture on the left, we were in the same theater class. And I remember we met and we discussed, and I said, well, I'm doing this and I would like to set up a company in healthcare and tech. And she told me, well, I worked all my life in healthcare. I am a medical doctor, and I'm going to be retired in a few months. If you want, we could start the company together. So it never occurred to me that I would start a company with somebody, I would say, that old. I would imagine, you know, starting a company with somebody younger than me, or somebody, I would say, my age, but not somebody who still is 20 years older than me. But actually was a pretty good decision, because he knew everybody, not everybody, but most of the people who would count in healthcare in France. And this proved very helpful starting the company. So the starting a company, I can tell, I would say, a very linear story. All entrepreneur stories look very linear. In fact, none of the stories are linear. You have several pivots along the way. The first pivot we made, we started with a digital immunization record that we tried to sell for 1 year. Pharmacists were very interested. Many stakeholders were very interested by that product, for which we still have the intellectual property in France, by the way. But nobody was ready to pay. So if you cannot sell it, basically you have no market. So this was our first attempt. So after 1 year, we decided to stop selling that and to try selling a second product, which is which was a digital, interactive appointment reminder for doctors, for medical doctors. We started we launched the product. We had very good adoption rate, but out of the blue, at a point in time, one of the main system provider for software provider for the medical doctors decided to break compatibility with our software. It was a very strong blow, because it was our main customer. There were several other software, but they were not as big on the market as this one was. So we were left without any customers. Left with no customers. We had some backup, but which were not technologically functioning very well. So basically, we could not develop ourselves anymore, and our installed base started to reduce. So we were in a situation where we could not generate any more cash. So
yeah. So Alexis, can you share a little bit your learning from this first run, and then how you pivoted to the current business model? Also, what was the next sequence?
All right, thank you, Thierry. So what I've just shown you is the internals of the path of creating a company. Usually, I never talk about those two phases or how I met my co-founder. So I'm really showing, I would say, the internal parts of the working of building the company. One key characteristic when you start a company is perseverance. You should not stop at the first difficulty. That's why I illustrated that with the two first one, with that digital immunization record and the interactive appointment reminders. So those two attempts failed, but we continued to find a solution to provide innovation to the market. So while meeting many people in the industry, attending conferences, we identified a new need for patient follow-up in ambulatory surgery. Why is that? There is a regulation that says that prior and after ambulatory surgery, the teams need to contact the patient first to basically to prepare the patient, and then to make sure the patient are well followed, I would say in good health at home. That strong, it's not an obligation, but it's a very strong requirement. And there was a problem, basically. Teams were spending a lot of time calling patients, but most of the patients, I would say approximately 40% of the patient never answered the call. Patients were coming late and were not saying it. People were not coming, patients were not coming, and we're not saying it either. And after returning home, after the surgery, they would not answer a lot to the phone. So basically, the teams were spending a lot of time trying to call patients without getting the results or the efficiency results they were expected to. And this appeared to be a very good area of opportunity. Basically, there were a need to improve the efficiency of that process, and there were no complete solution. Basically, you had nurses spending all day spending on the phone hours a day. Basically, for 40% patient a day, you need one nurse just to call the patient. So we said, okay, we could come with a digital solution, but how could we design a digital solution for that? We didn't know the market. So what we did, we took a study that is a regular study in France, which is an annual study about the digital behavior of people. And we looked at two things. First, are the people equipped with cell phones? So the answer is yes. As you see, 94% of the people use cell phones. Now it's plateauing. It's about 95%. It doesn't go above. The 5% that are left are people who are dependent, who are in very old people who will not be independent. The second important metric was, do people use smartphone or not? And we looked at a special chart, which is the usage of smartphone and the position of smartphone along the age curve. As you can see here, half of the people that are in hospital do not have a smartphone. So above that, what you see with the icons under the curve, if you see to the red, green, the yellow and the blue icons, you can see that those icons, you probably know them, but most of the patient never use them. What that means is that people not only do not have smartphone, but when they have a smartphone, they do not download applications. Basically, they take pictures of their grandchildren, they go on the internet, they go on the mail, and they use text messages. And this was, we took the decision to address the patient using text messages, SMS. And why did we do that? We did that because with new technologies, as with drugs, there is one issue, compliance. And to address that compliance, you need to be KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Why? Because if your solution is more complex than the problem that you try to solve, the pickup will never happen. People will never use it. And it is a very big problem. If among you, there are people that work for pharma companies, you know that observance is a big issue. It's a big issue. It's not a simple issue. It's not by reminding patients to take their drugs that they will do so. It's much more complex than that. There are a lot of psychological aspects to that. So we decided to do something very simple to help patients be compliant with the regulation. So maybe Thierry can show this. So what did we do? Just imagine that we have a secure pre-installed WhatsApp-like system that is pre-installed on all patients' phone. So what does that mean? The patient doesn't need to download an application, doesn't need to create an account, doesn't need to enter a password. What it just needs when the bot sends a question or an information, it just needs to answer by text messages, SMS. The bot will identify the patient, understand the answer, and then do one of three things. Either do nothing if there is nothing to do, it will gather information, it can ask another question, or it can send an alert if there is an issue. So it's very simple on the patient side and on the health professional side. Doing that simple stuff allowed us to have a tenfold efficiency gain for nurses that follow patients. So basically, we divided by 10 the amount of time that is required to follow patient, basically to call patient. So with two more benefits. One is that the patient outcomes improve. There is more safety. I can go into in the details. I can go later if you wish. And more patients can be treated. Why? Because as you free time from the nurses, you're not going to save half of a person or to give it to give her more tasks. In fact, what happened is they could process more patients, and what appeared to be the bottleneck was not the surgery itself, but was all the processing prior and after the surgery. So how do we finance the system? An important healthcare is quite different from other industries, because you can finance, you can have an indirect financing model. You can basically sell a product to the hospital or to a patient, and you get a refund from the insurance company, the payers, as we call them. And this is not the model we decided to pursue. Why? Because it's very long. If you want to get a reimbursement from the assurance maladie, for example, you wait several years. You need to do many studies to show that you improve outcomes and so on. So instead, we decided to pay ourselves by taking a share of the efficiency gain that the hospitals were gathering. So basically, reducing the time the nurse needed to call the patient is a big gain for the hospital. And the second big gain is that they could process more patients. Just as a rule of thumb, one patient they process is 1,000 euro in ambulatory surgery, represent 1,000 euro of margin. So by allowing to have more patient flow into the system, we could take a share of that to finance. So doing so, you reduce the selling selling time very much, because you don't need to wait for anybody to refund the system.
Thank you very much, Alexis. So now that you reached your viable business model, can you tell us more about the challenges that Calmedica is facing nowadays, and how are you addressing these type of challenges?
All right, thank you, Thierry. Maybe you can show. Yeah. So, when you create a company, the first thing you feel is you lack cash. You have almost no cash or very little cash, and you have no experience. When I mean you have no experience, it's not personal experience that you lack. You don't have the experience of a team, of a big team. People working in large companies, in groups, do not feel do not feel the benefit they have of having hundreds of people around them that have experience in the area of any area in business, be it technology, being pharma, being project management, whatever. When you start a company, a startup, you really are depleted with resources. But because you have that situation where you have no cash and no experience, you have to move fast. You have to move fast to focus on those, to gain those things, to gain cash and to gain experience. So how do you do that? You have a special way of building what you want to achieve. So most of you have heard about MVP, minimum viable product. MVP is not something you build over months. It's something you need to imagine. An MVP is something that you can build in one day. So in one day, this is the amount. Basically, the day is the granular the granular time you need to think about. In a startup, you don't think about weeks or months. You think about days. So an MVP is something you build in one day to prove a market, to try, to basically to initiate that trial and error discovery phase. So as we had all the skills. We have two skills inside. Corinne, my co-founder, knew the people and I knew a bit of technology. I was not an expert, I was not very good, but I could build the MVP. And what we did is, as we had no cash, we had to focus very much on what was absolutely necessary for the customers. And doing so, focusing to the, I would say, to the absurd, on only things that would be able to be marketable immediately, you not only do you save a lot of cash, but you save a lot of time. And so you go very fast. So secondly, you deliver value for your customer. You are never producing something that doesn't add value. Doing so, adding value, adding features to the software we are building, we could raise our prices, and that the virtuous circle started. So we could add feature. Because we added features, we could raise prices, and doing so, we were never in need of raising money. We were lucky because not all companies achieve to do that, but we were able not to raise money to start the company. And because also we had no cash or little cash, it forced us to stay in our niche, basically to stay in ambulatory surgery until we had enough cash to do something else. So we would explore all the niche, target all the hospitals, public and private, before doing anything else. So we became experts in that niche. And that translated into an outstanding service for our customers because we were addressing their needs extremely well, extremely focused. And the second benefit is when you start from scratch on one product, you have no legacy. You don't have the issue that you have on a big company, that when you start a business, there is you always have a risk to have collateral damage on other businesses. So I'm going to show you two curves. So this here, you see the growth we had at the beginning. So from the start in 2000, not exactly from the start because I could not find the data, but very early on in mid 2016 until the beginning of the COVID area. So since the beginning of that graph on the left hand side, we were profitable. Basically, we were growing at a nice rate. This is the number of patients we were dealing in the platform. So our revenue were growing faster than that, but it's a good illustration of the growth rate of the company. And it shows that it shows a regular growth. It's approximately 50% growth annually. And suddenly the COVID appeared. So what you can see here in can you show the previous one, Thierry? What you can see in the 2020 April, you can see a drop in the curve. So it means that during the first lockdown, sorry, almost all our business stopped. So we saw a very a tremendous drop in our turnover, and immediately after that the lockdown was cancelled in 2020 in June, you can see the increase in revenue. So we made a 4-time increase. So just imagine that with same amount of people, the same technology, everything ideal, you multiply your turnover by 2 to 3 in about 2 weeks. It looks like a sharp increase, but look at what happened next. In January 2021, Assurance Maladie, so the national insurance insurer in France, asked us to follow all patients that had COVID and their contacts. And so you see, all what you see on the left-hand side is the previous slide, and the bar on the right-hand side is what happened on January, in mid-January 2021. Basically, it was a 10-time increase that time. Over the course of 6 months, we had a 30-time increase, and in 1 week, we had a 10 times increase. To do so, to achieve that acceleration, you need to have the processes inside to deal with that. It's not just a question of technology. So how do we organize ourselves to have the ability to sustain such a growth? First, for example, we have put in place along the way several processes that are very that use very low resources, internal resources. For example, there is no internal email. Internal emails use a lot of energy from managers, from people working in the company. They need answering email takes a lot of time. So we use a software that probably some of you know called Slack. It's a direct messaging that is organized by a channel of discussion. And you open discussion on that system and you close discussions when the topic is addressed. It is extremely resource efficient. Second thing, we have no planned internal meeting, no planned internal meetings. The only one we have is a very short meeting every morning because we have in 100% remote work. So we need a kind of social interaction with people. We cannot cope with just not seeing each other for 1 month. So we have every morning, and there is like a ritual where we see everybody. But there is no planned meeting, absolutely no planned meeting. We call meetings when on an ad hoc way. And when we do a meeting, nobody attends a meeting just to get information. Information is on our systems. We have a CRM, we have Slack, we have a Dropbox, we have several systems where all the information is there. So you don't need to call a meeting just to share information, except some meetings where this is the purpose of the meeting. It would be a general company meeting once a month. The second thing is only one person from the company attends from a meeting, external meetings. We will never be duplicating attendees. For example, my co-founder and I will never go to the same meeting. There is absolutely no benefit to do that. If it's just to get the information, we make a very good report to do so. And we are constantly focusing our work, be it organizational or technological, to remove stupid tasks or repetitive tasks that do not add value. To illustrate that, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide some screen copy. So you see the Slack with the channels. You can see my agenda, which is a real agenda. You see there are no meetings. There is only the sales meeting in the morning, just to get a hold of the people. And we try also to use efficient software. So on the bottom, you see that we have a software to track our performance. This is completely automated. And when we take decisions, we always favor simplicity over something that is that could theoretically be efficient, but is complex. Simplicity is very important to save time in a small company. And last but not least, on the organization side, it's a very flat organization. The main value we cultivate at the company is be accountable. It means that whatever you do, you should be accountable for what you do. So there is no micromanagement. There is nobody who is going to tell you what to do next or what to not do. For example, looking at your friend's cell phone number on the system where you can access patients is completely forbidden. But there is, as we need to access the system, the back office, there is nothing that prevents you to do so. If you can do so, you are tracked, but nothing prevents you. But it will come to the idea of nobody to do so. Everybody feels a responsibility, and transferring the responsibility to the staff is an extremely efficient way to have a well-functioning organization.
So, Alexis, we are a little bit over time, and we want to keep some time for the questions before the end of the session today. Just the last question, and you touched already a little bit, but can you describe a little bit more about what is the type of culture that you want to keep enforcing in Calmedica, and how you keep people engaged in the company?
Okay, so I talked about it already. Can you show maybe a slide? Yeah. So I'm going to take in 2 minutes 3 examples. So the core value, I say, be accountable. To give you some example, we do not decide what technology or what type of computer people use. They tell us what they want to use. We buy the computer, and they set it up. So everybody gets what he wants. So we are not going to make a policy about computers. Or we have a very strong security policy, extremely strong security policy. All computers can be erased from remote. This is compulsory. Then after that, you can take whatever you want. And for example, we make fast decision making. So when somebody wants to trial something, he gets budget. There is not an approval system, for example, to spend 1,000 euro. We don't care. We try. We see. You have to feedback on whether it is efficient, whether you went to the objective or not. If not, we stop the spend and we allocate that money elsewhere. If it's successful, we pursue. But we're not going to make a committee, 3 committees to know whether we should spend money. I think that's enough. You can read the rest of the slide.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexis. And we see that if there are people in the audience that want to fund a stuffed tiger for your team, you're welcome to do so. Let's move to the questions from the audience. So we did not have a lot of questions from the chat, but still we have one question from Thomas. So Thomas, maybe I leave it to you to ask live the questions to Alexis.
Well, congratulations, Alexis, for quite a journey, and thanks for your presentation. My question was your perspective on what it takes and the ability to scale an initiative or a solution like that. What have you found in terms of the ability in the system to scale, and how would you say the French environment favors that, or on the contrary kind of hinders and refrain that ability to scale up?
Okay. There are a lot of things in your question. I will address several points. France looked to be France looks to be a place where you cannot innovate. Sometimes people say that. It's not true. We can innovate a lot in France. What is difficult in France, though, is the complexity of the rules. For example, the HR rules, when you recruit somebody, setting up the HR software takes you about 400 parameters. It's true, 400 parameters. It's crazy. For example, this complexity. I had I remember I talked about. I had a friend who were in the cabinet of the previous Ministry of Labor, and I told her that. She said, "We are doing a great laws and so on." I said, "Yes, but it's too complex. You need experts to manage that. Just to hire the first employee, you need an expert to know what you can do, what you cannot do, or you can pay." This is a real issue. I'm not sure it's much easier elsewhere. Maybe in the US. I don't think it's much easier in Germany and so on. But definitely, it could be an advantage in France if we would simplify these things. Scaling. There are 2. When we started the company, we assessed the market, and the market now looks 10 times bigger than we initially estimated it. So scaling seems really possible in France. There is definitely possibilities to scale here. It's easier if you don't need money. We are generating cash, and this favors. It's not an awkward, but maybe a special situation, because as we generate cash, we are able to fuel our own growth. We have basically, I should not say that, but we have more cash than we need to grow on the market. We are not enough cash to grow internationally because it requires a lot of cash, but we have, I would say, really sufficiently to grow in France. But this is not this comes back to a situation where we never over invested in things. one thing I like to say is when you have an orchard, you should not put people to take the fruits before they are ripe. And many people overspend means they overspend the market. So they put people to collect the fruits when they are not when they are still green. So they invest too early, and this can be an issue. Maybe it's an issue that French people do, maybe more than others. I don't know. Does that answer the question, Thomas?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Thomas, Alexis. We have a question from Augustin de Bettigny. Augustin, maybe I propose you to ask it live.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. No, I'm just wondering, Alexis, if you're recruiting, and if so, what kind of profiles you're looking for right now?
Yes, we recruit. Mainly, we recruit two types of expertise, either sales expertise or technological expertise. Why? We decided that the rest of expertise were not our core business. So we outsource all non-core businesses. So we outsource HR, finance, legal. This is the main expertise that we outsource. So why do we invest in those two areas? We do not only invest in technology to deliver value for our customers. Half of the work of our development team is to add value internally. What does that mean? Since the beginning, you have heard about Capitaine Train. Capitaine Train, for some of you, their motto was that the best customer service is than when people do not need any customer service. What does that mean? Is that the value you deliver, the service you deliver is so good that people don't need to call you. This is something that we are taking very seriously inside. And since the beginning, we have only one person for the customer support and the parameterization of all customers, just one person. How do we achieve that? Well, half of the development team works to make it easier to parameterize or to set up the software. So we are in a Scrum mode. Every 2 weeks, we add functionalities so that supporting customers, setting up the software, and making the software easier to use are priorities. So it's not customer-facing improvements, but it's back office improvements that translate into a lot of agility. It means that in less than 2 weeks, we can set up a new customer. Does that? It's a long answer. I'm sorry. So.
Gauthier Rose, you had a question. Are you still online, Gauthier?
Yes, I am online. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead, Gauthier.
Yes. So yes, I wanted to know what you plan as a platform to work as an ecosystem with partners. So I understood that you want to add value internally, but how do you see a partnership, and especially in the perspective as a platform?
Very good question too. In fact, when I say we add a lot of value internally, it means we make our software very efficient for ourselves also. But as any new SaaS company, we keep our system very open. In healthcare, there is a situation where all those systems are so closed that the government was felt the need to impose, I would say, compatibility between softwares. We call interoperabilité, to make it mandatory so that hospitals could have their system communicate without paying a huge fee. Otherwise, just connecting two software costs thousands of euros just to have a simple exchange of information, because all the software, all those platforms are proprietary. We are completely against that, for example, and we try to be as open as we can. We connect to WeThings, for example. WeThings, so the IoT provider provides scales, for example. We can connect to Doctolib, we can connect to hospital ITs, to LIFA, to any software that exists on the market. We try and expose what we call an API that is public, that is publicly described, so that anybody can take data securely from us or drop data also securely from us, but it's open. Does that answer the question?
We will take that as a yes from Gauthier. We still have time for a couple more questions. There was a question from Sandra. Sandra, are you on?
Hello, I'm here. Alexis, thanks for the great presentation. Congratulations for being able to build such an amazing venture and self-finance. Maybe it's a bit private, but are you in any time thinking on opening the company to finance your expansion, or you believe you're better on your current model?
It's a very interesting question. We opened a little bit of the capital initially to friends and family. We really wanted to do that to make so that our friends could put a little money. It's really absolutely minimal. It's marginal. We are not opening the capital not because we don't want money, but we want to keep the absolute decision making in the company. Why? Because if we had listened to advice when we started, everybody would have told us to go and use smartphone applications, because at the time in 2014, it looked like the place to be to develop a smartphone application. We decided instead to go countercurrent, to go at the opposite, and to use a very simple means, text messages, because we said it's usage that will drive I would say the growth of the company and the technology. It's not technology for technology's sake. And I think we would not have been able to do that if we had a board of people, financial people, who would have felt the pressure from the market to follow the biggest technological trend. I say that also because elsewhere in Europe, for example, people start to ask us to go and to deliver our software because everybody is using a smartphone application. Nobody is using text messages as we do, because in fact, nobody believed in it. But as we are all sapiens, so it works all the same elsewhere. So we have a request in a few of European countries to start implementing the solution over there.
Thank you, Alexis. We have the time now for the last question, and it's a question from Thomas Safir. Thomas, are you online?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Alexis. Hope it's a good question then. So yeah, I have also a company who opened to healthcare market a couple of years ago. So I'd like your feedback, Alexis, on working or not working with or through partners for selling and delivering your solution.
Okay, this is also a very good question. I experimented when I was in air transport. I experienced trying and sell a technological solution from a company, outside company. It is always very difficult because salespeople are really embedded into the solution. So they know when they are trained to sell a type of solution, it's very difficult to ask them to sell something else. So we have a direct sales channel. So we recruit salespeople. Most of our sales are done over the phone, especially during COVID, because we could not enter hospitals. But we were doing that previously too. So basically, the COVID crisis did not impair our selling process. We try and sell to make a partnership with Orange. It was very difficult because they would bring, I would say, they would bring a prey, or they would bring a hospital, but they could not sell it. They could not sell because they could not understand what was the medical value of the system. They knew the technological value, they knew the information system director, but they could not pitch the system, the real added value. So the partnership was very light. So basically we had to do sales anyway. So partnership was not very efficient. We have a partnership with Air Liquide also, and it's different there because they are using our solution. They embed it into their offering. In that case, it's more efficient because they understand the efficiency of the software for themselves instead of pitching it to outside customers. Does that answer the question precisely enough?
Okay.
Thierry, you can ask more questions if you want. I have no constraint.
Thank you very much, Alexis, but we probably need to close now. And thank you very much. Thanks a lot for sharing your experience and those very valuable insights with us tonight. There are a few additional questions, and I think that we will see with Magali and with the club if you can also come back to the people answering the question offline. So thank you very much. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Mohammed. And we're going to close for tonight and wish everyone a very nice evening. And looking forward to our next healthcare transformation stories in 1 or 2 months from now, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And
thank you very much.
Continue the discussions on our LinkedIn group, as Mohammed put in the chat. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.